Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I'm going to be looking at Ubuntu 20.10 for the desktop right after this. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different view of Ubuntu 2010 today. Everybody is doing their reviews right now, and so I'm sure you are very familiar with what is offered as far as the features that are in the desktop interface itself. I'm going to dig under it a little bit, get under the covers, look at some of the features that were added to the kernel, look at ZFS a little bit, look at the minimal install a little bit, and then see how that kind of all adds up. So that's just a little bit different approach. So give you some additional information that maybe some of the other YouTubers haven't provided. So I say here that it's in the desktop and server editions. There's a placeholder for the server edition, but at the time that I did this review, the server edition wasn't yet available. So I suspect that's probably coming shortly. There's placeholders for the documentation at least. So as of October the 22nd, I didn't see the server edition. It still showed 2004. But the desktop version is definitely out, and as you're probably well aware, it has a code name of Groovy Gorilla. And that has a 9-month support window, so sometime in July, probably the end of July 2021, you will be on your own for updates. So if you're looking for a longer term release of the system that you don't have to do a reinstall, and probably at that time you'll be reinstalling to 2104 would be my guess, because that will be the next release that comes in April, we hope. But yeah, so your support window is going to be gone. If you need something longer, you might want to consider just doing 2004. The biggest feature is that the kernel updates to 5.8, and it was 5.4 in 2004 as of this time that I'm doing this video. And so 5.8 has support for the newer Intel and AMD CPUs, like the 11th and 12th gen CPUs. That would be Ice Lake and Tiger Lake. There's another lake. I don't think that is yet on the roadmap. And so I'm not quite sure when that's coming, since Tiger Lake isn't even slated now until next year, I believe. At least the 7 nanometer version of it. But it adds support for also of the AMD Zen 3, and that's just initial support. The other thing that kind of took me by surprise is I saw this one. It said it adds Thunderbolt 3 support. It's like, what? Wait, that's been in the kernel for a while now. But it's actually a kind of a subtle change. They talk about it being the USB 4 support, but it's really more than just that. Most of the PC implementations of Thunderbolt have used, there's a piece of software called the Connection Manager in Thunderbolt, and that manages your connections and your chain of your devices that you have on your Thunderbolt network. So that connection manager is written in hardware on PCs for the most part. On Apple, however, they use a software-based connection manager, and I think they have for quite some time now. And so it's just providing additional support in the kernel for either method, whether it's a hardware-based connection manager or a software-based connection manager, and that just widens the number of devices that Linux will support. Also, there's the XFS file system. There's Online Repair. I'm going to talk more about that when we get to the file system section. This particular part is to the kernel. It really needs two pieces. One needs a kernel update as well as the file system update as well. The security, IP tables is been replaced by NF tables, and that's now the default firewall in Ubuntu 2010. Toolchain updates, glib has been updated to 2.32, and I think the previous release was 2.30. No change to OpenJDK, it's still version 11. GCC 10 is an update. Rust 1.41 is no change from 2004. Python 3.8.6, so it's got a point release. I think it was 3.8.0 in 2004. and PHP was 7.4 in 2004, and now it's 7.4.9. So another point release, just some patches. No change to Perl, no change to Golang. Those are the same versions as they were in 2014. Desktop news, though, the GNOME desktop has been changed. It's been updated to 3.38. And that adds some enhancements to the activities overview and also some user experience improvements. And we'll kind of touch on those. And other people have already done those, and so I don't think I need to recover what they've already talked about. But one of the things that they don't talk about in the release notes is that there is a smaller footprint here for GNOME 3.38 over the previous releases. And we'll talk about that when we get to the minimal install. Firefox version is 81. LibreOffice is 7.0.2. Thunderbird version is 78.3.2. But I guess my only comment about Thunderbird is I don't know why that's still included in the releases. I know it's in Fedora too. That is really getting dated as far as the look and feel. If you match it up with the other applications that are in the system, even Firefox, if you put it next to it, it looks like something out of the early 2000s, the 20. It doesn't look like anything that's been done in the last 20 years. It really needs an overhaul on the UI, and maybe make it a more modular UI where you can theme it. That would be really nice. BlueZ version 5.55. And as you probably are aware, or maybe you're not aware, there was a vulnerability found in BlueZ that was kind of bad. But that version is the patch that closes that vulnerability. And also, one of the things that 20.10 is offering is a full desktop image for the Raspberry Pi. Now, they're saying that they're first. I don't quite understand that because Raspberry Pi, of course, has their Raspbian. Raspbian has a full desktop as far as Raspberry Pi's foundation is concerned anyway for their Raspberry Pis. But maybe what Ubuntu is talking about is it's more of a traditional desktop. And certainly it would be the first one. Yes, most definitely. Now, there's been some lighter weight ones for like Mate that Odroid has done for their systems, and also there are some third-party ones that have been done for the Raspberry Pi that offer Mate as well. But the catch here is if you want to use Ubuntu's and you have a 2 gig Raspberry Pi 4, you're out of luck. That won't work. They recommend that you go, they say they only support a Raspberry Pi 4 with at least 4 gig of memory. I'm going to be testing it. I've got an 8 gig. I've got a couple of 4 gigs, so I can test it and find out how that actually runs and looks. But I haven't done it yet. I'll get to it. File system support in 2010. So ButterFS RAID 1 is added. Please see my previous videos on discussion about that. Whether or not you should use a RAID on ButterFS, but use that at your own risk. That's all I'm going to say. ZFS boot is now using OpenZFS 0.84. And I said in one of my videos that they were going to skip 0.85. I was wrong. They must have found some things that needed to be patched, and so they rolled out a 0.85, in fact, just this week. So, yeah, there is a newer release of that. And, of course, that was just done just on the same week that 2010 was rolling out. So I doubt they've had any time to integrate or test it. But maybe they'll add that support at some point down the road. I don't know. But their ZFS boot is no longer considered experimental. So maybe Ubuntu feels that we're at a point now where we're safe to use it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to be trying that out. The ZFS, XFS, I should say, provides an online repair. And in 2018, there was a version 14 patch of XFS. And I've talked about this before, that the XFS file system team has they've gotten the code from Silicon Graphics, and of course a lot of that originally was proprietary. I think pieces of it are kind of rolling into the open source community by whoever owns that license today. Silicon Graphics, of course, is defunct, long defunct. But whoever owns the rights to that software has been gradually opening it up and rolling it out, and the XFS team on Linux has been, over time, adding those features into the XFS file system. So this wasn't an oversight. I think this code base might have been what was inside of the Silicon Graphics pool, the domain of being unreleasable into the open source community. So it might have been a proprietary part of the code. So anyway, in 2018, the version 14 patch set for XFS permitted metadata scrubbing and repairs on mounted file systems. So that's a nice change to have. In the past, we could only do those scrubs and repairs offline. They had to take the system down and then do it. But previously, the Linux kernel up until 5.8 didn't know when XFS needed a repair, so it couldn't flag you and tell you that, hey, your XFS system needs a repair, please do it, or have it automatically scheduled. So now it does. Now it should do that. Overlay FS pairing with VirtIO-FS. I'm not 100% sure on this, but what I understand it to be is that VirtIO-FS is now, at least the upper region of the file system is writable by Overlay FS. So, and in the past, I know that that has not been the case, but I think that's what I understand about that. So let me take a second and I'll be right back and we'll take a look at the minimal install first. Okay, it's starting up, so yes, I am running this on a VM. As I said, my machine is still tied up. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about the background image, but it looks a little creepy. But anyway, this is when you go to install the 20.10 release, there's only one ISO that you're given for that. So during the install process, it'll ask you a question at the bottom, and it'll say, do you want to install a minimal release? And if you click that, then it'll go ahead and it'll lay out your file system. And of course, this is an ISO, so it's probably just plopping everything down. And you would normally think that a minimal install would take less time because it's not putting out as much stuff. But in this case, it's already put it out because it's part of the ISO image. And so instead of adding any additional things to a baseline release, this is actually having to rip it back off. So it does take a little bit more time to install than the normal installation process would take, because you're laying it down on your file system and then you're backing off those packages that you don't want. So yeah, so just realize that. I mean, it's not a complaint, it's not an issue. It's just realize that it is going to take you a little bit longer, a few minutes longer to run it. But yeah, I mean, I kind of did this earlier. So yeah, you can kind of bring stuff together if you want. Make little iPhone like directories out of it. I guess everybody has to have a cell phone look today. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where instead of keyboards we'll start having, just the look and like a iPad works, but I hope not. So, and you can rearrange things. You can put them out of order any way you want. Now, one of the things that if this is a copy of what Mac OS does, they have an Explorer tool that's part of the Finder, and you can do stuff like this. You can, merge, put stuff into directories, and when these directories you get a full list of icons here, they will actually page now in this release, which is kind of nice. But one of the things the Mac has that this doesn't have is if I right click on the desktop, it gives me an option to resort the order of the icons. So I can put it back into alphabetical order, I can put it in a date order, or I can just leave it alone and let it remain, the way I want them ordered. But this does not have any way to do that other than, having to go and line them up and put them back in the right order and do it yourself. That's what computers are for, I think. It's to save us from having to do that. But, all right, so let's, I should have stayed in there because I need to get to here. So let's see how much memory this is taking. Now this is on a normal ext4, I think. Let me verify that too. We'll do. So there's my block. Let me do a sudo block ID. Yeah, I know I can do a LSOF. I just want to check and see what we got. I got a VFAT for the boot, and it looks like an ext4 for the root partition. So, yep. So, all right, let's do this first. We've got 6.6 gig in use. That's a lot more than it has been in the past, and this is a minimal. Remember, this is a minimal set of storage for because I don't have that many applications that are out here. Now I don't know. Let me just see if I have anything to be removed. Nope, everything looks good. So then we'll do a free mem, and we're at looks like about 628 megabyte of memory that it's requiring. That's not much. That's 250 megabyte more than XFCE usually takes, and it's about 500 meg less than GNOME usually takes. So that's a pretty significant improvement. That's not bad. I do have HTOP installed. We can look at it that way. 624 meg still. Now I haven't done a lot of running of applications, so this is just. I mean, as you saw, I brought the VM up raw from the start, and I haven't done a lot with it. But as I start to do things, of course, it's going to cache files, and it's going to take more of that memory away. But for the baseline, yeah, that's pretty good. That's really nice. I guess that'll remove some of the complaints about GNOME taking a whole lot of memory, huh? But let's see. It's 5.80-25 generic, and this kernel compile occurred on the 15th of October, so it's pretty recent, a pretty recent build for Ubuntu. And of course, that is a special, looks like a special patch for them. So yeah, it has some markers in it that look like it belongs to them. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in here other than maybe talk about kind of a thing that used to cause. I've seen this cause new users a lot of problems, is that you'll notice that if I wanted to just restart my machine, I used to have to go to power off to do that, or if I wanted to log out. Usually I think that was there before, but this one wasn't. That was always inside of this. Which that's always seemed kind of weird to me, is that you had to hit power off to get a restart. So it's nice to see that they've separated that out, and suspend has been separated out as well. But it still does confirm. But it will take that power off in 60 seconds if you don't do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. And I'll be back. I'm going to go get the other one ready. Okay. So again, I'll let it start up. This one is the normal install, except it's on a ZFS file system. So this should be fairly complete. You'll notice there's a few more applications here along the side, like there's Rhythmbox, and there's LibreOffice, and there's Thunderbird that have been added to the mix. So as far as what packages are actually installed, now I put this one out here. I'll show you guys again what happens. But if you have ZFS as your bootable file system, it will snapshot into your grub menu anytime you make a change. So if you add a package or delete a package, it'll snapshot so that you'll have a way to roll back in the event that something got broke. I know I've seen some packages where you bring them on and they don't seem like they take a lot of things, but boy, when you deinstall them, they take a lot more than what they installed, and usually it's stuff you needed, right? So if that happens, you have a way to roll back to a snapshot and start up again. So yeah, it's that it's nice. It's nice. I don't know. Yeah, this one shows the paging right here. So you can page back and forth between the lists when you have a full list of utilities that take up the entire, all 9 slots. Now, you get more depending upon how, and the same happens here too. It pages up and down just like it did before. But as far as packages that are included in this, of course, the ones we just mentioned, but transmission is also there. And I think, yeah, Shotwell is here. That's a photo organizer. So if you're taking photos and you want to organize them, you can do that. And then a couple of games. And then LibreOffice, of course, we talked about that. And don't really see too much else other than Sudoku. Yeah. All right. So how much is this taken? So this is going to be a bit of a cheat because CFS has compression turned on. And let's let's do it this way first. Otherwise, I'll get all of the ZFS directories and data sets. I don't want those. So there are 2 pools, the boot pool and the root pool. The boot pool is taken about 100 meg, it looks like, and the root pool is about 4.33 gig. Now that's with and I've installed HTOP, Glances, Git, ABI Word, and I installed one other, NeoFetch. I installed that. So that's the only ones, and also I think there's one other that I was installing. Let's do this though. Let's find VLC because that's not there. So let's go ahead and put that one on. And then you can see how it snapshots. When it does the installation. If I can get it to take my password. Oh, you did not do that. Okay. We'll get it eventually. This is going to install a lot of stuff. I'm not going to stop it. I'm just going to let it go. There it goes. ZSys is adding automatic system snapshots to the grub menu. So the next time I boot up, I should have some options, right, as to what I want to have done. Pretty nice feature. The other thing is, let's see. So we're taking about 4.54 gig, right? So what is our compression set to? And the only way to find that out is to do a get all. Let's do the B pool first. I wouldn't expect that would have a lot. Compression ratio 105. And it is on, and there is the compression mechanism LZ4. I know that on the website for OpenZFS for Linux, they don't recommend this anymore. They don't recommend using LZ4. They have a newer algorithm for compression, which is a lot faster. They claim it's a lot faster. I don't know how much faster it is. I am using the new one, and I haven't seen any difference between the old one and the new one. So I don't know how, but I am using video files, and those. Yeah, some of those will compress and some of them won't. So it just depends. All right, let's look at our pool and see what the compression ratio on that is. 1.72, which is right here. And again, it's LZ4. That is pretty good. That's a pretty heavy, I wouldn't call it heavy. It's a good amount of compression. So it is saving us some disk space in doing the compression. However, it's also taking some processing time to bring it back up because you have to decompress it for the other files that want to read it. And how is that doing on memory? Yeah, 2.1 gig is in use currently. I wish I could get some tools up and we could break that down as to how much of it is ZFS and how much of it is actually being used. But I think for right now, based on what I know of GNOME is not the culprit here. The culprit is ZFS taking up that much memory. So, I mean, it does take memory, and it depends on how much is in the file system. So we have 4.58 gig. So yeah, it's going to take about half of it until it gets up to a certain point, and then the ratio will change a little bit. But yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, it is what it is with ZFS. You want a good, reliable file system. You got to give it some RAM. That's all there is to it. As far as the other things that I like to do, let's just do an HTOP and verify it is 2.06 gig, definitely. Now they do recommend that you have a 4 gig system when you're running desktop, and they say if you're in the VM to run 2 gig. Well, as long as you are on ZFS, yeah, you could do that. But I would think 4 gig would probably be a good place to start, and that's pretty light. That is, if you stop and think about it, for ZFS, that's pretty lightweight. Usually they recommend at least 8 gig and preferably 16 gig in your system to actually run it. So, yeah, not bad, not bad. I guess the only other thing to do, let's go out here and run Linus. I always run this. Oops. Yeah, we'll go ahead and run this out and see how it compares. Now, I can tell you that I should have done it. I should have done it on the other system, but the other system pulls out lower at 66, and the reason for that is it is a minimal install, so it's missing some of the packages that the full install of Ubuntu has that it's looking for security. So it's just flagging and say, hey, you need to install these packages that were removed. And so the minimal has a lower score. Then this should come out to about 68 or thereabouts, somewhere in that neighborhood, about 68. Usually that's about where Ubuntu falls. They're usually in the higher tier of the security hardening. Although that would be I mean, 68 isn't great, don't get me wrong, but it's usually higher than most of the others are. Let's see. 68, yep. And let's see. Harden. Those are all the same. Yeah, we've got protocols turned on that should be off. We need to disable some stuff in the kernel. We need to get our password ages. We need to set our encryption schemes a little bit hard, make them a little bit more finer. And we need a password on the grub menu, which is for a VM. That's ridiculous. And then the IP tables is loaded, but no rules are active, of course. And so that's a pretty hefty fine against the. That will go up to probably around 77 once that's fixed. Once I put in rules for that. But let's see. Like I said, I'm not going to cover the applications. Others have already done that, and so if you want to know more about those, be my guest and learn more about those. The App Store, let's see if it's gotten a little better. When I went in here, it seemed a little slow to update. Now, I'm going through some of these for the first time, and so they haven't downloaded the caches yet. At least I hope. I'll go try one that I did earlier, and you can see this is taking a while to load. I don't remember this being this slow before on one of the others. Let me try. I did utilities before. Oh, it looks like it's reloading from the system every time. Maybe they have a caching problem here. That's a little bit better. I did this one too. Yeah, so it is caching it. I don't know how often. Now, haven't brought this one down. Of course, it's going to depend upon how many entries are in this too, right? or how fast it's going to be. But that does not seem to be really snappy to me. Yeah, I mean, here, Pop OS. Yeah, I got an update I need to do. By contrast, I mean, they're a lot more, and I haven't gone into development. I haven't gone into any of these. So yeah. Let's see. I haven't gone into finance. So yeah, they could definitely do a little bit of improvement here. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going to end things today. So let me go back upstairs, and I'll get rid of my mini-me. As far as the release itself, of course, the purpose of this release is really meant to serve as a placeholder for new hardware. So it's meant to be able to, here's a new kernel, here's support for the new hardware that's coming, because it always seems like it comes in October, right? In order to meet the Christmas holiday season, for when people usually buy new technology toys. So they want to have in place an operating system that people will be able to use. Even though it's only short term, it does provide some features that newer hardware will take advantage of. So that's nice, and that's always good to have. Apparently, they are definitely doing some refactoring on GNOME, and it's paying off. It's definitely headed in the right direction. It's becoming more and more light, and yet you're getting more features out of it as well. So that's a good trend. That is a good trend indeed. Most of the software today seems to be going the other way. It is not I've heard some complaints from some of the other people that reviewed it, have said that it's really not that much of a change. Well, I don't think I agree with that. From a desktop perspective and a software perspective as to what you will be using, right, it's probably not. It's probably got some refreshes on the applications to make them more accurate, make them more available to you. But this release is really meant about providing options for you if you're purchasing new hardware, to allow it to operate and allow it to run. And we need this. We need this kind of thing in our releases, unless you want to go to a rolling release where everything is going to change. So if you want to stay on a system that has a periodic release cycle, or you want to use the long-term release cycle, which is a little bit more stability and a little bit longer-term support, then the LTS releases are for you, but you are giving up the ability to handle new hardware as it comes out. So you just have to realize that it may be a full year before you get an LTS version that will support hardware that you're buying. So just be aware of that. Anyway, that's all I had for today. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again very soon. Bye for now.